The humidity in Greenville, South Carolina, doesn't just sit on you, it waits for you. It was a Saturday morning, the kind of thick, golden southern morning where the air smells like fresh-cut fescue and charcoal starters. I stepped out onto my porch, a simple bag of trash in my hand, squinting against the glare bouncing off the brick of my single-story home. I was looking forward to a quiet day of nothing, but the universe, or more specifically, Patricia Lockwood, had other plans. At the edge of my driveway, 3 figures stood in a formation that was clearly intended to be intimidating. In the center was Patricia, our HOA president, a woman who wore her sense of entitlement like a suit of armor. Flanking her were 2 men I'd never seen before. They were dressed in black tactical-style vests with community enforcement stitched across the chests in bold, white block letters. I paused, the trash bag heavy in my hand. I didn't rush, I didn't tighten up, I just watched. I've spent the better part of 15 years reading people for a living. I noticed the details immediately. Their boots were scuffed, not polished. Their tactical straps were dangling loose, a snag hazard no professional would tolerate. Their stance was rigid, rehearsed, like they'd watched too many episodes of Cops and thought looking tough was the same thing as being capable. "Mr. Stone," Patricia's voice rang out, sharp enough to cut through the morning air. "We need to talk." I set the trash bag down with deliberate slowness, resting my hands on my hips. I didn't walk toward them, I made them come to me. "About what, Patricia? My grass is exactly 2.5 inches, I checked." One of the men stepped forward. He was tall, pale, with a shaved head and mirrored sunglasses that he probably thought made him look inscrutable. To me, he just looked like a guy who bought his wardrobe at an army surplus fire sale. "Community enforcement," he said, his voice a flat, gravelly affectation. "You're in violation of neighborhood regulations. We're here to detain you until police arrive." I let the word hang in the air for a moment. Detain, it's a heavy word, legally speaking. "Detain me," I echoed. I couldn't help it. A small, amused smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. That's an interesting choice of vocabulary. Patricia folded her arms, her chin tilted at an angle that suggested she was presiding over a royal court. "You've ignored repeated notices, Maxwell. This has gone too far. We can't have someone undermining the standards of this community. These men are here to ensure you comply." I shifted my gaze from Patricia to the officers. The second one was shorter, broad-shouldered, with a scruffy beard and eyes that kept darting to the houses across the street. He was nervous. The tall one, however, was fueled by the kind of misguided adrenaline that usually ends in a police report. "And what exactly are the charges?" I asked, my voice low and steady. The bearded one pulled a folded paper from a vest pocket. "Property violations, non-compliance with HOA orders, unauthorized modifications to your driveway, loud gatherings. The list goes on." I almost laughed. "So you think that gives you the right to walk onto my property and, what did you call it, detain me?" "That's right," the tall one said, his jaw tightening. "You can come peacefully, or we'll make it harder." The air seemed to freeze. In the periphery of my vision, I saw the curtains shift in the Andersons' house. To the left, a teenager, Victor Tyler, was already standing on his porch, phone held horizontally. The neighborhood was watching. "There is no such thing as community enforcement, gentlemen," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a scalpel. "You aren't police, you have no authority here, and right now, you're trespassing." Patricia's cheeks flushed a violent shade of red. "Don't talk to me about authority, Maxwell. We've had real complaints, and I'm not about to let this neighborhood fall apart because of you." She stepped closer, her voice dropping into something uglier. "People like you always think the rules don't apply." I narrowed my eyes. "People like me, Patricia. Be very careful how you finish that sentence." The bearded man, whom I'd later learn was named Austin, shifted his weight. "Look, this doesn't need to get ugly. Just come with us to the community center. We'll wait for the officers there. Clear it up. Maybe they go easy on you." "Officers?" I asked. Funny choice of words, because the only officers I see are 2 clowns in bargain bin tactical gear pretending they've been sworn in. The tall one, Justin, stiffened. He took a bold step forward, his boots scraping aggressively against my concrete. "Sir, don't make this difficult. You're being non-compliant. That means we have the right to escalate." I didn't move an inch. I stayed in his personal space, maintaining a level of calm that clearly unnerved him. "Escalate? You're standing on my property with no badge, no legal authority, and no idea how deep the hole you're digging is. You've got 30 seconds to back off before you regret this stunt." Patricia snapped, her irritation flaring into genuine rage. "You think threats make this better? The HOA exists to keep this neighborhood safe and respectable. If you won't respect the system, maybe you don't belong here." "Respect isn't forced with fake cops and threats, Patricia," I replied, my gaze fixed on her. "It's earned. And this isn't about rules, it's about control. You've confused the two for a long time. That line carried down the block. I could see my neighbors nodding. The tide was turning and Patricia could feel it. She looked at Justin and nodded. It was a silent command. Last chance, Justin hissed, bending low, trying to puff himself up. Come with us or we use force. I looked at the cameras pointed at us. I looked at the community enforcement patches. You really want to try that? In front of every witness on this street. Go ahead, show the world who you really are. Justin's eyes darted to the glowing screens in the distance. For a second, I thought he might back down, but pride is a hell of a drug. Instead of retreating, he reached into his vest and pulled out a pair of cheap, nickel-plated metal handcuffs. He snapped them together with a metallic clink that sounded like a funeral bell. You're under neighborhood arrest, he declared. The crowd gasped. I didn't flinch. I lowered my voice, my tone honed from years of federal interrogations. If you even think about putting those cuffs on me, you're committing a felony, impersonating an officer, unlawful restraint, kidnapping. You're looking at 10 to 20. Justin, this is insane, Austin whispered, his voice cracking. We're gonna get locked up. Do it, Patricia shrieked, her face contorted. Show him who's in charge. It was the breaking point. Justin lunged. He was slow, he was untrained, he was predictable. In one fluid blur, I sidestepped his reach, grabbed his wrist, and used his own momentum to pivot him toward the pavement. A twist of the arm, a sharp snap of the wrist, and before the crowd could even scream, the metallic clack-clack-clack of the cuffs echoed through the driveway. Justin was face down on my driveway, his own handcuffs locked firmly behind his back. The neighborhood exploded. Did you see that? Victor shouted from the sidewalk. He flipped it on him. I got that on 4K. I stood over Justin, my breathing as regular as if I were reading a book. You're done, I said. Don't resist. It only gets worse from here. Patricia's face drained of color, turning a sickly shade of gray. You can't arrest him, she screeched, her voice reaching a frequency that made my ears ring. You're attacking him. That's assault. You're right, Patricia. I can't arrest him, I said, my voice cold enough to silence the entire street. But I can certainly detain him until the real law arrives. Austin stumbled back, his hands lifted high in surrender. I'm out, he blurted. I never signed up for this. Lady, you never told us he was law enforcement. Patricia blinked, her confidence finally shattering. What are you talking about? I adjusted my hold on Justin's arm with one hand. With the other, I reached into my back pocket and drew out a worn leather wallet. With a flick of my thumb, I flipped it open. The gold badge caught the South Carolina sun, gleaming with a terrifying authority. Special Agent Maxwell Stone, I declared, my voice carrying to the very end of the cul-de-sac. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that occurs right after a lightning strike. You came onto my property with imposters, I said, my eyes boring into Patricia's. You thought intimidation would give you control, but you didn't do your homework, Patricia. You had no idea who you were dealing with. Before she could even stammer out a response, the low, rhythmic wail of real sirens began to grow. 2 Greenville PD cruisers swung around the corner, their blue and red lights painting the houses in strobe-like flashes. The officers stepped out fast, their hands hovering near their belts as they took in the scene. A man cuffed on a driveway, another man with his hands in the air, a crowd of 50 people with phones out, and me. I didn't rush, I didn't shout. I stood tall, holding my badge steady as they approached. Officers, I began, my voice the definition of professional command. Special Agent Maxwell Stone, FBI. The man in my custody attempted to impersonate law enforcement. He trespassed on my property, attempted an unlawful restraint, and assaulted a federal agent. Every second of it is recorded on a dozen different devices. The lead officer looked at me, then at the badge, then at the community enforcement vest. He sighed, the kind of sigh that says he's about to have a very long afternoon of paperwork. We'll take it from here, Agent Stone. Justin was hauled up and transferred into official police cuffs. Austin was leaning against a cruiser, already spilling everything he knew. Then the lead officer turned to Patricia. She was trembling now, her regal armor having dissolved into a heap of cheap polyester and panic. Ma'am, the officer said, his voice sharp, did you authorize these men to act as law enforcement? I was only trying to keep order, she stammered, her voice thin and reedy. He wasn't following the bylaws. I'm the president of the association. Order, I cut in. You staged a fake arrest to intimidate a neighbor you didn't like. That's not order, Patricia, that's a crime. We all saw it, a neighbor yelled. She's been harassing him for months. "You're finished, Patricia," another shouted. The officer shook his head. "That title doesn't put you above the law, ma'am. You're coming with us for questioning regarding solicitation of a crime and impersonation." As they led Patricia Lockwood away, the woman who had tried to rule our block with an iron fist and a clipboard, she looked back at me one last time. There was no more fire in her eyes, only the realization that she had finally met someone she couldn't bully. I watched the cruisers disappear, the red and blue lights fading into the distance. The neighborhood didn't go back inside. They stayed out, talking, laughing, finally feeling like they could breathe again. I picked up my trash bag, walked it to the bin at the curb, and looked at Victor. "Did you get all that, kid?" He grinned, holding up his phone. "Every frame, Mr. Stone. It's already at 100,000 views." I nodded, a small smirk playing on my lips. "Good. Make sure you tag the HOA's official page." Power built on fear always crumbles. Sometimes, it just takes a little federal intervention to give it a shove. If you've ever seen someone abuse their power only to have it collapse in front of the whole world, you know how satisfying that moment is. If you believe that no one is above the law, especially not a neighborhood tyrant, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll be here to tell the stories that remind us all. Justice might be slow, but it's inevitable.